Hello and salam alaikum, everyone. It is me, Nejma, and I'm with Angelique today. And today we're going to be doing the Lobbying 101 presentation. So today's presentation, we're going to go over a little bit of lobbying basics with the legislative session, talk about our priorities and the next steps and follow-ups. But before we get started, we can start with introduction. My name is Nejma Usman, and I am a policy associate with CARE Washington, and also a second-year MPH student in Health Management and Policy Division. But yeah, I'll pass it on to my wonderful colleague, Angelique, to introduce herself.
Yes, hi, I'm Angelique Rodriguez. I'm the policy assistant here at CARE Washington, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I am excited to do this presentation with Angelique today. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the layers of government. So there are 3 layers of governing bodies: local, state, and federal, and each of these levels has its own responsibilities and powers. At the federal level, we have 3 branches of government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, and the executive branch is responsible for enforcing laws. So that's the president, the vice president, and the cabinets. They're all a part of this branch. The legislative branch is responsible for making the laws. Congress, which consists of the Senate and the House of Representatives, is part of this branch. And the judicial branch is responsible for interpreting the laws. And the Supreme Court and other federal courts are part of this branch. At the state and local levels, the governing bodies have similar structures with their own executive, legislative, and judicial branches. And these branches really work together to create, enforce, and interpret laws that impact our daily lives. So lobbying at the legislature. This year, there's definitely the impact of COVID still continuing. It is kind of a hybrid format. So the legislature is back to in-person meetings. However, they do encourage you to wear a mask and not have more than a group of 5 in a meeting. They're also still very much doing virtual meetings, as you know, if you are participating in MDAC Part 1 this year. We're still scheduling virtual meetings with our legislatures. Typically, if you are doing it virtually, just normal etiquette, following the lead, taking turns, creating space, active listening. I always would recommend, thanking the person you're meeting with, keeping track of time, and mentioning the purpose of the meeting at the very beginning. So who are these people, right? There are 49 legislative districts, so 49 senators, 1 per district, 98 House of Representatives, and they are responsible for drafting and introducing bills, voting to pass or kill bills, and debating on the merits of a bill. And you can find your district senator and representatives at this link here. Angelique is going to do a mini tutorial of the legislative website, so she'll get started on that very soon. On lobbying. So lobbying is, when you're trying to influence a politician or public official on an issue, or and they really come from various walks of life, whether that's like lobbyists from big corporations or lobbyists from nonprofits, and general people. And so lobbyists can persuade public officials' votes and opinions. Ways that you can lobby, participating in MDAC really is one way, letting legislators know why they should support or oppose a bill, and possibly, end up influencing policy. If you can speak up at committee hearings for or against bills, meeting with legislators and sending them materials, it really is your right to lobby. And you can do this simply as sending emails, right? Or calling the legislator a few times a year. So why take the time to lobby? Well, it's a direct chance to impact what becomes law. You would share your opinions, express support or disagreements about a proposed piece, and your perspective, experience, and concerns are really important, and it makes them aware of what the public perception of a bill is. And you could possibly sway a legislator's opinion on the matter and therefore their vote. So where do bill ideas come from? I am going to click on this Schoolhouse Rock video in a second. But, bill ideas come from various places. They can come from like state departments and agencies, cities, counties, and school districts, or special interest groups, as well as constituents, right? So now I'm going to click on this Schoolhouse Rock video that goes over how a bill becomes a law.
Najma, I think the sound like cut out. I'm not hearing it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It looks like the audio went out for a second, so I'm gonna unpause it and pause it again.
A long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in.
Oh, Najma, it's when you mute yourself that it turns off.
That I will, but today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." And he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be. That they will, but today I'm still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably. Otherwise, I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. I go to the House of Representatives and they vote.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be alone. And pray that he will, but today I'm still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're sold.
By that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I'm still just a bill. He signed your bill. Now you're a law. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So that was the bill.
Here are 5 Star Wars facts.
Sorry about that. Apologies for some of the tech glitches, but that bill kind of showed how a bill becomes a law. It's the Schoolhouse Rock video. You can find it on YouTube. It's super old, but still relevant today. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was CARWA's MDAC 2023 bills. And these bills are bills that we are in support of. I am going to be talking about a few of these bills, I'm not going to really go into depth, but for those of you who are going to be participating in the part 1 policy meetings, you will receive fact sheets and one-pagers and talking points, really kind of going into depth as to why we're supporting these bills. But HB 1207 is a bill that is about harassment, intimidation, bullying in schools. And this bill would require public schools to distribute related policies and complaint procedures, and designate a primary contact for compliance with non-discrimination laws. 1784 is a House bill about expanding the emergency funding to Washington's food system. So that is a bill that would fund programs like SNAP that are used to buy fruits and vegetables and senior meals. HB 1513 is a bill that many of our partners are pushing for. So the Washington Council for Police Accountability, amongst the ACLU as well. And that's a traffic safety bill. 1479 is a bill on preventing isolation and restraint in schools. So yeah, those are our MDAC 2023 bills. And then I'm going to pass it over to Angelique.
Yeah, so thank you, Najma. Now we'll just look at a quick overview of the legislative homepage. So this is the homepage. So we can start by looking at bill information on that bar over on the left-hand side. So if you look at bill information, you can search bills. So like we can start with 1207, that's one of our bills. And then we press search. And then here you get like a quick overview of, in that first box, you can see that in the House, it was introduced, and then it passed the House. Now we're just waiting for it to essentially go to the Senate, but that little box there kind of shows like a overview, like a visual overview of the timeline. So then you can like scroll down a bit and you'll see bill history there. It's also an overview where you can kind of see the timeline of where it was at, where it's at now, and you can kind of click on those like little committee materials as well. But we can also keep going down to available documents. Those are probably the more substantive materials to look at. So you can see like the original bill, and then you can see the substitute bill. I recommend looking at the bill reports because those are a little bit easier to digest, in my opinion. Yeah, you can kind of, Najma, do you mind clicking on that for me? Thank you. Yeah, you kind of can see like a brief summary of the bill, background. It's just more digestible. So if you're looking for a place to kind of look at what exactly these words mean, because sometimes words can be confusing in the world of politics, I feel like I tend to go there. Thank you, Nishma. And then we can go back and then we can look at those videos down there. Those are kind of just the hearings essentially. And so you can click on those and just see what was talked about in the hearings, how they went, et cetera, et cetera. So we can go back to the homepage. Thank you. And then we can look at agenda on the tab or the column over here on the left. You can see the agenda, schedules, and calendars. So I would recommend looking at floor activity reports. So if we could click on House, thank you. Yes. You can go to current working calendars, click floor, and then select a date. Perfect. So If we look at number 6, we see 1207. And then if we look at under floor action, like kind of those come together. Yeah, click on that. We can see the voting. So exactly what representatives voted in what way. So there were like, you can see like how many people were absent or excused, et cetera, et cetera. This is important because you can just kind of look at that, see maybe how your representative is leaning, if you agree, if you don't agree. Yeah, it's just a good place to go for that. I think we can go back. And then I think the last thing is looking on Let Your Voice Be Heard. You can go and click on the contact your legislatures. And you can, that's a way to like get in communication with them. And yeah, I would recommend going to that tab if you want to go there. I believe that's everything, unless Najma, you think I'm missing anything?
No, I think that was great. And, you know, the legislative website is definitely dense. So fortunately, we can't really do a super thorough walkthrough of the website without it taking a long time. However, I think what Angelique highlighted are definitely some of the more important things to know on the website. I would highly encourage you getting familiar with the website. The more you go on it and click on these links, and the more comfortable you'll be, and you'll kind of get a hang of things. One thing that I would mention was that on agendas under the session cutoff calendar, this calendar is really important when it comes to looking at deadlines for bills. So this is kind of the calendar you would follow if you're following a certain bill and tracking its progress. Keeping in mind the cutoff calendar is really important, so you know if your bill hasn't made it, what part of the process it's at, and then you know if it died at some point. So this calendar is really handy. But yeah, I think that's about it, and I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Najma. Yeah, that was good point. Good point. Then we can go on to the next one. Yes, so how to testify. So the main thing when I think about testifying is know that like no matter what, you have a story. You're living in the jurisdiction of like the United States, of Washington State, of King County, wherever you are. If you're on US territory, you are living under US laws. And I definitely believe that that laws intimately impact every part of our lives on, again, like I guess intimate ways to I guess larger ways that we might think about more. And I want to sound like a broken record, but thinking about like, for example, coffee, like I feel like most people don't think about their coffee every morning when they're going and getting it. You just want your coffee, right? But there's a lot of like how the coffee beans came to be, how you had like a interaction with the barista, et cetera, like there were laws that shaped that whole interaction to come to be. And then comparing that to like much greater examples of essentially state power, where you can see like prisons, deportation, et cetera. But my point there is laws impact, I think, every aspect of our lives in ways that we don't always think about, and in other ways that are much more apparent and we might think about more. So what I hope that you can take away from that is that when you are looking at policies, when you're thinking about what you want to say, think about the ways in which like these laws and possibly these policies that are being talked about impact your experience, impact your community's experience. If you have concerns, like this is the time to just to state those concerns. And your legislature, like, it's their job to hear what you have to say. And I think it's easy to get intimidated. I often get intimidated, or I get nervous at least. I still do every time I do this. And that's okay. But just know, like, you have a right to be there in that space, and it's their job to take what you have to say and listen to you. And yeah, just know you have a right to be in that space and make your voice be heard. And I would say that try practicing it. Try, like, writing whatever works for you. For me, it's like bullet points. So I'll like write different bullet points, and then I'll just kind of like try and practice it until I feel a little bit comfortable with it. But yeah, I would say practice it, think about it, and know that you deserve to be in that space. And then on to the next slide, which is PSI. Are you able to open that, Najma?
This link?
Yes, right? Thank you. Yeah, essentially, if you want to testify in a committee, like, you can go there and there's instructions for how to do that. I definitely recommend going and checking that out and following those instructions if that's something that you would like to do. Thank you. And then other ways to connect to the Capitol is all of the ways listed here, which is mail, email, make phone calls, and appointments with staff and representatives. A lot of times you will probably talk to staff, but it's, again, their job to like relay that back to the representative. Reserve space at the Capitol for events, protests, marches, and just like continuing to be informed on during like your time outside of that. Just staying informed in itself is also very important. So there's lots of ways. Again, if it's not through MDAC, at least coming up soon, like, there are other ways in which you can still make your voice heard. And then other spaces, not just at the Capitol, within like your community, like more narrowly possibly, is Washington State Board of Education, local school board meetings, city council meetings, Seattle's Community Police Commission, engagement meetings, and a lot more. There's a lot of ways in which you can just like that are not listed, in which you can continue to be engaged in politics within your community. So important to do that. And then yes, in-person day, MDAC, which, so we also have a second part to MDAC, which is March 20th. So if you are able to and you would like to, definitely put that on your calendar. We're going to go to the Capitol, and registration is coming soon, but the more the better, and it's going to be a great time, and I hope everyone can come. So thank you for that. I think that's it. Nejma, would you add anything to what I just said?
Yeah, that was the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you are interested in to the in-person day of action. Yeah, like Angelique said, that is on March 20th. It'll probably be a small group of folks this year round, but for folks who are interested and are able to make it, we definitely welcome that. Registration form should be coming out later this week. But yeah, and if you have any transportation or access needs, we are providing limited transportation for folks, but again, very limited. And we would encourage folks to bring their own cars if they, or, use public transportation if they can. But yeah, and then our actual part 1 of MDAC is March 1st. So excited to see you all. For those of you all who are attending, the registration has closed now, so excited to make that happen. But thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, Angelique, for presenting with me today.
Thank you. Thank you.